cataclysmic event. How long ago was this event? So the sun is beginning to set here, and I want to finish up this quick part. The thing is, they supposedly had blocked off the real entrance to the underground city, what have you, and the only way to get there, is by foot. You can't get there supposedly by chopper. You can't get there by no kind of vehicle. You have to hike your way in there, supposedly, and they say that it takes days. And when you look at the other side of the Grand Canyon, if you was to come from the other side of the Grand Canyon, it's really no roads, there's no gas stations or stores or anything for you to stop and get supplies. So we talk about a long journey, if you want to bypass all of this tourism and cottages and camping grounds and stuff like that. No camera does this place justice. Nothing. You have to come here, you got to see it for yourself, you got to really take a look at it, but then you got to really get into the mystery of this place and everything that's here. Like you really start to think when you see the carvings and when you look at the pyramid shaped mountains and everything like that, and the fact that they named a lot of these mountains after the ancient Egyptians, like Osiris and Isis and stuff like that. So it really gets you thinking, and the tour guides will talk about that, and a lot of people talk about it when they come through here. So now, one of the things that you have to really take a look at, and this is what has people who really do research looking at the Grand Canyon hard. I mean, look at this wall here. Just take a look. Now, if I take a fork and I scrape the fork up against the wall, you're going to see the marks from the fork. So you're going to be able to tell that it was some kind of instrument that did this. Now, look at the walls here. Look at the uniformity of the lines all the way around. I mean, it's uniform. You can see the scrapes as if something hit it or carved it out. See these lines here? I mean, take a look at that. It's uniform. I mean, you can measure them. So it's as if, look down there. Take a look at this. Let me see if I can get this in there. Yeah, here it is. Sorry about the wind. Try to brighten this up. Wrong way. There we go. Take a look at this. Just the carving. What the fuck did this? Again, sorry about the wind. When you take a look at some of the size of these canyons, you can see it's almost like windows that's cut out, that's carved out, holes that lead to who knows where. There's a couple of them I'm gonna see if I can get the camera to pick up the go. There's a few of them. They go like 2 right there. That's about as far I can zoom. But you'll see them a lot. See that right there. And according to many Native Americans, it's supposed to be some kind of huge underground city. And the camera, listen, these holes are huge. They're huge. The camera can't do it justice. I'm telling you, they're huge. That you can, if you climb down there, you can walk through these things. It's another shot I want to get. Okay, guys, take a look at this. You guys can see it. You can see the little trail down there. Like I said, the camera cannot do this thing justice. It is deep. It's creepy. And right now I'm at the edge, guys. Like, look, as you can see, I'm at the edge. Sorry about the wind. Put it on your bucket list. I wanted to do most of the video from here, but it's like impossible with the wind and the amount of tourists that keep interrupting me, walking back and forth and shit, and Okay, so now when you step back and start looking at everything, we know, I talked about in part 3, how humans and dragons or dinosaurs did coexist. Now, we know that according to them, the dinosaurs was killed off by some kind of cataclysmic event or a meteor or what, millions of years ago, according to them. Now, we also have ancient civilizations. We have the Indians saying that they had to go and hide underground because of some cataclysmic event. Now, we can guess that this had to be the same cataclysmic event that killed off most of the dinosaurs and forced people underground. Has to be the same event. So we're talking about all this stuff had to have happened, sometime after the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx were built, because they basically survived that event. Whatever happened, it survived it, forced people underground. And when the ancient Egyptians came out, they could see the pyramids still there, but they obviously was damaged and not working. But I believe the land was still fertile. But now, as I said again, this raises too many questions. You would think that if they would build something that would stand the test of time, like the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx that survived, flooding and water erosion and everything like that, that they would build themselves a city on the surface as well that could stand up to any kind of cataclysmic event. But we don't find the ruins of any civilization older or as old as, the Great Pyramids that's, more advanced. Because you would think that they would build themselves a city that's more advanced than the Great Pyramid, a huge, unbelievably technologically advanced civilization. This is why, a lot of people believe in, Atlantis and Lemuria and stuff like that they, sank underwater. But this is where they had their huge advanced civilization, but it sank. But then you would have to look at the rest of the world, which is still so vast, and then ask, why not build in other places as well, especially in Africa, when Africa seems to be the best place where you should build. Now, because of that, this is another reason why people believe in the whole hollow earth theory. They believe that there are massive cities in hollow earth underground, and it's a lot to support that. Now, for people who don't want to accept any of that, they just say, well, aliens built the pyramids for whatever reason. Now, the whole thing that crushes the whole aliens building the pyramids theory is the fact that the ancient Egyptians who came out after the cataclysmic event, we can see clearly that they tried to rebuild the pyramids. Now, if aliens built the pyramids, then why would they think that they can recreate them? They had to have had advanced knowledge. They had to have had an understanding of how to build these pyramids and the purpose of the pyramids in the first place, what they was doing as far as the negative ions. They understood this. They had to have this advanced knowledge somehow, which is what I talked about in 2 and 3, how they were remember the whole parable, man, know thyself. They were starting to remember who they were. So this played, a major part in that. But if aliens built it, there's no way they would have thought that they can actually go ahead and recreate the pyramids. But, it's some unbelievably weird, crazy stuff going on. I've been doing this research for, years now. And, it's led me, to so many different places. And, hopefully you guys can take this research and hopefully it's filling in a lot of gaps for you. But in my research, the whole hollow earth theory fits. I'm going to explain why. I already really explained why, but I'm going to get into it a lot more. Now, if you can't accept the hollow earth theory, then you will have to accept the fact that mankind was put on this planet about 8,000 years ago. Let's just ballpark it and just say about 20,000 years. We wasn't on here for more than 20,000 years. The reason why you would have to accept that is because we just don't find any ruins that's that old. I'm talking about older than Heru and Maquette, the Great Pyramid or whatever. We don't find any ruins. You would expect to see ruins of a major city somewhere predating the pyramids, predating the Sphinx. So this leads you to believe that it has to be underground. It just has to be. It has to be underground because we don't find nothing on the surface. And since we don't, we could say that mankind was put here about 20,000 years ago, but we know we have found remains, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old and even millions of years old. So that kind of scratches that theory. The hollow earth theory fits, and we're going to get into that a lot more. So now, since we do not find any ruins of a technologically advanced civilization on the planet, which would have to have exist for someone to build the complicated Great Pyramid, that we know they had to use advanced technology to do so, advanced tools, machines to build those pyramids. All of you have seen the videos. I mean, and the whole video I put out on Metu Volume 1, he talks about it. He talks about how complicated that they had to use, precision machines and, a lot of technology to do what they did as far as building the Great Pyramid. So you would expect them to come from a very advanced civilization and not just be some primitive people living off the land. Then it would be like, what is the purpose? What is the point of doing all this? And you're not going to protect yourself with a structure equally as advanced as the pyramid. So because of this, we're going to dig into the whole hollow earth theory. Now, what gives the whole hollow earth theory the most validity is Admiral Byrd. And, Admiral Byrd, I talked about in my whole video on the analyzing flat earth theory. Admiral Byrd and the whole Operation High Jump, the whole event, the whole experiment is well documented. And Admiral Byrd went on TV, talked about how they found landmass, the size of the United States in the, south of Antarctica, the South Pole. So basically they were doing this exploration. He was tasked with doing this whole mapping out of this area. And he talked about how, they found this landmass there. And, when you start reading his diary and his books and how he goes into more detail besides the video, he talks about how, it goes from cold, and then eventually you get this oasis of grass and fertile land, and it's supposed to be really nice there. We know people talk about pyramids in Antarctica, all kinds of stuff like that can't be, completely validated. But for Admiral Byrd to go on TV and say what he said is huge. Now, understand, all of this is on record. It's public record. The whole Operation High Jump, you can go and you can look at the transcripts and read what was said. The book came out with Admiral Byrd's diary, somebody published, and anonymously, I believe. And there's a lot of information on this whole thing. Now, understand this. This is what you got to realize. When he did that interview, there is no way in the world they would have let him do that interview if what he said wasn't true. If they wasn't actually planning on going and doing the whole exploration and, everything that he said on TV, if they didn't find it, they wouldn't have let this man go on TV and say what he said. So they basically, at that point, at the time he did his interview, remember, he was talking about how they're going to have further explorations into the whole thing. So it was a full go, according to him. So they had plans, clearly had plans to go in and explore more. It was underway. It was a go. And they obviously was going to later release this information to the world if they let him go on TV and talk about it. So this is something that was for sure. It was a go. You had the United States, you had the UK, you had Australia, you had the Soviet Union, all involved in this, and other countries as well. This was a major thing that was supposed to change the world. Now, what happened next is the biggest shocker on how when they get there and continue the exploration, they completely turn around and say, no, we can't do this. They made a whole agreement, a whole Antarctica agreement on how nobody is to go into the interior of Australia. Nobody is to explore. We are supposed to completely leave this space alone, this area alone. Now, understand, we know these people, if what Admiral Byrd was saying about the resources, which I believe is true, he wouldn't have said it. If these kind of resources are there, what would make them turn away? What would make them not, explore this whole thing? Now, remember, we're talking about in the 1940s. We knew that Hitler was already in Antarctica and supposed to have established a base there. This is one of the reasons why they went there with so many troops. And this is one of the reasons why we got there in the first place. After the war was over, we got the scientists and we got a lot of information from what we found, or what have you. And they basically was following Hitler or, some deal. Let's just get real with it. Probably some deal was struck between Hitler, because there's no way Hitler killed himself and none of that happened. He survived it. They took him somewhere. Who knows? He probably was right there with them leading that whole exploration into Antarctica and talking about what he found there. Remember all the technology that Hitler was supposed to have had, you know, the super machines and everything like that. Look at the stuff that he built back then. He had some advanced knowledge about something. And they went in there and they followed and went deeper into the interior further, obviously, than what he could have. He probably needed their help or what have you. Who knows? But remember, Hitler was there first. And then, you know, after the war was over, immediately, here they go. They go straight into Antarctica for this whole huge trip. And for them to just, you know, after everything, for them to say, you know what, fuck it. We can't go in here no more. Nobody goes, block it off. Don't let nobody in here. What the hell could they have found to cause them to do that? Now, I want you to take a look at the map of Earth. Now, this is supposed to be all of the land that there is on the planet. Now, he said that there was a landmass there the size of the United States, you know, as you go south of the pole. So we're talking about south of Antarctica. The thing is, if you take a plane from California to Australia and you go, you know, backwards the other way, it takes about 14 hours. It's a 14-hour flight. So understand this is the United States in relation to Australia. Look at how big it is. So if you were to put America south of this, of the pole, look at the space it would take up. It would still be a huge, chunk of the water that would be basically, full of land. And it's still not that much space from America to this land that he's talking about. So you would think that if this landmass was there, and he said, Admiral Byrd said himself that no human had touched this land, no humans have been there. You would think land that close, even from America or Antarctica or Australia, you would think that some people would have explored this land. It would have been all these years, somebody would have made it there. Somebody would have taken it. It's not that far from America if you go the other way. It's not that far from Australia if you go the other way. And you would be able to explore this landmass. It's huge, the size of America. This tells you that they are lying about the map. They have to be. It's not the way they're talking about. He gave up a lot in that interview. There's no way in the world there can be a landmass the size of America, you know, on the other side. Now, the whole thing is the reason why nobody could explore it is supposedly, you know, he talked about the mile, you know, high block of ice. Ice is covering it. So, you know, you can't get to that point. But if the map is the way that they tell us, if the map is this way, we're talking about then all the land that we see that's on the map, draw a line under all of it. And matter of fact, just circle all of it. That would mean that we are completely surrounded on all sides by ice and no one, you know, ice that's miles high. And we basically, encircled. We're encircled by ice. Ice surrounds us all and nobody has explored any land beyond the ice. This is basically what they're telling us. And it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit that we are surrounded by ice. But this is the only explanation that fits if no one explored this land. You would think, okay, well, it's ice here that's blocking it. Let's go around it. Let's go South America. Because when you look on the map, look how close South America is to Antarctica. You're talking about when you go to far south as you can of South America, supposedly it shouldn't be that long of a trip to hit Antarctica. But why can't you go the other way and go around? According to them, there has to be ice that way in every direction. And, you know, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. Something is wrong. Something is going on here. That's what I want you to understand. And so many people bring this up. This is why so many people are obsessed with the whole flat earth thing and inner earth thing, because it raises too many questions. But what we do know for sure, they are fucking lying about this map. Now, I'm not saying that the earth is flat or anything like that. I'm saying that something is seriously wrong. And we know for sure that the map is a lie. Now, a lot of flat earthers, they believe in this whole dome theory that I also talked about in my Analyzing Flat Earth video. They believe in this dome called the firmament. And they get this from the Bible because the Bible in Genesis talks about this firmament. When you read Genesis, 1, 6 through 7. It says, "And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." Think about that. "And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which was above the firmament." Think about that. It says here, "And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day." Now, think about what's being said here. If the firmament is a dome, right? Some kind of dome covering a flat earth. It's talking about water being under the firmament and water being above the firmament. So if the firmament is a dome, or heaven, as the Bible says, the firmament was called heaven. And as you go on to read, it says that the sun and the moon were put in the firmament, heaven. But this is saying that it's water in the sky. You understand what I'm saying? It's saying that it divided the waters below the firmament, which is on earth, and the waters above the firmament, which is what? We can't say clouds, because remember, the sun and the moon is put in the firmament, and we know that the sun and the moon is higher than clouds. So think about it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. Now, these fools actually drew this whole diagram of the firmament and the flat earth with water being over the sky. I mean, how dumb is that? This is what, religion does to people, the Bible. How the hell could it be water in the skies? Understand what's being said here. And it doesn't fit with the whole, theory, which is why I don't bang with the whole flat earth thing, because it doesn't fit something that's up. Now, understand, of course, we know the Bible is parabolized, but the firmament thing is relating to something else that we'll get into at some other time. It's not no dome. Now, understand, before we supposed to have went to the moon, when the Van Allen radiation belts was discovered, it was already determined that we could not go through them because the radiation would be, completely harmful, and no organism would be able to survive going through this radiation. So everybody thought when they went out there that they had figured out a way, of course, to get through the radiation belts, meaning we never did, and we never went to the moon, as I pointed out in the video on flat earth. Now, I get a lot of people, who love NASA, who had a lot of comments on this whole thing. A lot of people believe that we did actually go to the moon, even though NASA themselves tells you that we did not. And people don't know how to pay attention, which is why they can't realize it. The video that I put in the whole video on analyzing the flat earth, it just proves it. She kills it. She nails it, explaining the fact that they faked the entire thing. So pay attention to how he's being very careful in his wording, saying, about the Van Allen radiation belts. If we already went to the moon already, if we went there, then why not just use the same technology from the 60s that you used to get us through the Van Allen radiation belts the first time? So think about what's being said here. They're telling you we never went there. So basically, according to this video, that they are basically just now, or at that time point, developing technology that will help them get through the Van Allen radiation belts. They hope. Remember, what really is going to outer space and taking pictures of Mars and the planet and what have you, it's just robots. No human life is going out there. We already know that they haven't even really tested animals, because they know for sure 100% anything they send in outer space that's organic is not going to survive the radiation. So it's just, send out drones, send out machines. So the video is telling you basically, listen, we can't get out there. We can't go. We're going to send this whole Orion out there and try to test this thing to see if possibly, a human could survive it. So if they're doing all this, they're telling you flat out, we never went to the moon. So now understand, there is a huge connection between the Van Allen radiation belts and everything that we talked about so far in this video. There's a connection to the radiation belts and the whole hollow earth theory. Now, when you look at the Van Allen radiation belts, look at the diagram on how the radiation is structured, how it's surrounding the earth, I should say. When you pay attention to the Van Allen radiation belts, you can see how it circles the entire Earth. It covers the entire planet except for the poles. The poles, it basically, it doesn't affect them. It's not touching the poles. Now, when you look at all of the hollow earth theory models, when you look at all the depictions, they always show an opening in the north and south poles, meaning that it's an opening, the earth is hollow, you can, potentially, well, probably fly, from north to south or fly through it. It's probably, huge, intricate levels of civilizations or what have you in there, but there is a way for you to go from the north to the south pole and come out and not be affected by the Van Allen radiation belts. Now, remember before when I was talking about the harmful radiation. Well, the harmful radiation that we are experiencing on our bodies is coming from this Van Allen radiation belt. So now not only are we feeling the effects of the Van Allen radiation belt, and our body cells have to fight off the radiation from it. But because of the Van Allen radiation belts, we cannot leave the planet. So it's the Van Allen radiation belts that's keeping us here. And they've been trying for years to figure out a way to get through them. So the question now becomes, well, if the Earth is hollow, how come they just don't go down there and, go out through the opening of hollow earth? Now look again at the diagram. Look at where the radiation belt connects as far as the South Pole. What's south? Remember, it was Antarctica that's down there. This whole landmass is supposed to be down there. Now, of course, they're not showing us the actual depiction of what it really looks like, but they're trying to tell you that there is this opening there and that the Van Allen radiation belts go out in this format. Remember in the video about the Van Allen radiation belts, the astronauts that actually went really close to the belt. Remember the experience they talk about having, how they were seeing spots and how they was feeling sick. And if they were exposed any longer to that radiation, they probably would have died. So now understand when you look at the diagram again of the Van Allen radiation belts, look again at the North and South Pole, how it's not exposed to the radiation, where the opening to hollow earth is supposed to be. So again, if you were Admiral Byrd and them and you took the whole exploration into the South Pole, you would get to the point where this hole is supposed to be. But look at where the radiation touches at the South Pole. So eventually, as you get closer to the opening of the South Pole, you are getting closer and closer to the Van Allen radiation belts. This is why they left the South Pole. This is why they stopped the whole exploration and why they stopped exploring down there, because of the radiation from the Van Allen radiation belts. As they got in more and more to the South Pole, they experienced the radiation. They probably started having symptoms of the radiation and they got their asses out of there. Now, a lot of people say that they encountered a civilization or aliens or something down there. You got to understand how many countries was involved. And we know that if America, just America alone, the Europeans have shown throughout history, they don't have a problem with killing and wiping out entire populations of people. So it wasn't the fact that it was some people down there that they wanted to not touch, or some aliens or what have you. They would have still went down there if it would have benefited these countries. They would have went down there. They would have explored. Something would have been done. The only way they would not have went down there is if they were not physically able to move or to do anything down there. And again, the more they got closer into the opening, the supposed opening of this hollow earth, they were feeling the effects of radiation. They probably, during the beginning of the mission, were not even measuring for radiation. They probably thought they could just go there. But as they probably got closer to the pole, they probably started feeling the effects on their body. And then they realized they were being exposed to high levels of radiation. They probably did testing and found out that, well, wait a minute, it's radiation here. And as I said before, we are being exposed to this radiation, and it's the negative radiation that is affecting our body, that our body cells fight against every day from the day we are born. It's a problem. This is why they left the poles. Understand that. This is why they stopped the whole thing, shut it down, and said nobody ever go back there again. So now when you do your research, it pays off. All of this stuff ties in together. You have to understand what was going on around this time frame. You have August 1945. What happens? You have Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the atomic bomb dropped, detonated over these two cities, wiping out a lot of people. Some people say it wasn't actually a nuke. It was a giant napalm bomb because, plants actually still grow there. So no radiation could have been unleashed there. Which, if it was a nuke, they detonated it overground, so it wouldn't have that kind of effect on the soil. But that's something that's debated. But you have that. You have in August, the dropping of the atomic bomb on those cities. Then a month later, September 1945, you have the end of World War II. Then right after that, you have in 46, 47, the beginning of the whole Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd that I just talked about going into Antarctica. Understand how this is back to back to back. Now, we know, as I said, they probably went in there and found the radiation, and they probably just started doing experiments close as they could, for a while, which I believe the last test or flight for Admiral Byrd was in the late 50s sometimes. But we go from the late 1940s when them doing this whole testing into Antarctica. We go into the 1950s. What happened in the 1950s? You get directly after this whole agreement not to go into Antarctica, the same countries, France, the Soviet Union, or Russia, whatever you want to call them, America, you get them all doing nuclear testing in the 50s. Why? There were, probably hundreds of nuclear bombs exploded, not just in America, but in a lot of places, around the world. We know the Russians, the Soviets were doing tests, and you remember the whole thing about, I forget the name of those people, that they basically destroyed them with radiation poisoning. They was having all kinds of birth defects and all kinds of issues. That was one thing that happened. We know in America they were doing all kinds of tests in Arizona. Now, most of us believe that these tests were done, them just testing weapons of mass destruction to use in the case of war. But no, understand, they were shooting these nuclear weapons into space, into the Van Allen radiation belts, to try to disrupt it, to try to destroy it. This was what they were doing. This is what all this stuff was about with the nuclear bombs. It was trying to change or get rid of the Van Allen radiation belts. Now understand this. Before we get to this point, the Van Allen radiation belts, we have an ionosphere that's in the Earth's atmosphere. It's being held by the Earth's magnetic field. So understand when I'm talking about this whole Van Allen radiation belts, it's not the Earth's magnetic field. It's a totally different thing. They're using the Earth's magnetic field to hold the Van Allen radiation belts. So they were sending nuclear bombs in there in hopes to basically expand the negative ions in the ionosphere and hopefully generate enough to basically, as I said before, the negative ions help to, basically destroy the radiation. This is what they were trying to do. They were trying to basically generate enough to destroy the Van Allen radiation belts. And this was, what they were doing. This is the whole reason why they were sending these missiles up there. It's a lot of stuff. I'm telling you, you really got to pay attention. If you get the time to read some of the official documents that have been, pulled out due to the Freedom of Information Act. Some of this stuff is online. Some of the stuff you can go and find, and you can take a look and read from, we talking about top officials, admirals, and, all the way down to people who just guarding a door, who just hearing things and seeing things, who gave accounts later on and had, made testimonies to certain things. And you got to read these documents and put this stuff together. I spend hours and days sometimes reading documents. And after a while, when you start doing a lot of research, it becomes easy for you to understand what is actual factual and what is, planted disinformation.